Attention all operators on countdown 1. This is the final go, no go for Flight 2 of Starship. Again, our T0 is at 7 a.m. Central. Raptor 1.
Go.
Raptor 2.
Go.
Stage 1.
Go.
Stage 2.
Go.
Copy, go for flight. Clock is rolling. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have liftoff.
Boost stretcher cut off. Stage separation.
Attention all operators on countdown 1. This is the final go, no go for Flight 2 of Starship.
All right, everyone. I think we are on air roundabout now. Give it a couple of seconds, just waiting on one cue to come in, and then we will go. Just give it a moment, folks. Just making sure that we are completely live, and I think we are. Give me one moment, everyone. Just checking something here. I think we are live right now. So just bear with me for a moment. I'm just going to wait on Kelly just to make sure that she's all set and ready to go. Let's just give that a moment. Yep. All right. Good to go. Kelly, you good to go, my friend?
I'm good.
All right. Fantastic. All right. So a lot of folks are on the road. Some people are in other continents. I promise you 30 minutes for a debriefing, and that will be it. Quick, short, and snappy. My name is Ali Hirji, and I'm going to be the moderator for today. And I promise you 30 minutes, quick, rapid fire on everything that happened at Operation Defend the North, Toronto. They say the future arrives slowly, but when it comes all at once. And Mike and I tell you that last week, exactly this time, we had just completed Operation Defend the North Toronto and the final edition of the 2025 series of ODTN. The scenario was an interesting one, where a transit system called CyberX Transit System, modeled after the city of Toronto, is hit with an attack. And a couple of things happened there. And I've got 5 or 6 questions that I pulled from the online chat that I'm going to run through with some of my advisors with me today. This is the debrief. We have 28 minutes, quick, rapid fire. Shreya, I'm going to start off with you. You are sitting in a theater, because who doesn't have, besides a fridge, a microwave, a washroom? People have theaters in their homes, clearly in their homes in India. Welcome, Shreya, and thank you for joining us at this godforsaken hour. Shreya, a question for you. How difficult was it to visualize and create a synthetic environment that models North America's third largest transit system? What was one major challenge you faced visualizing that and bringing that to life technically?
Right. So when it comes to visualizing these things and especially providing it in a way so that audience understands, I think that itself is one of the biggest challenge, because you can create high level technical diagrams, you can create low level things as well. You can go in depth technical as much as you want to, but unless and until you connect your audience with it, it won't be making much sense. Especially when it comes to exercises these, where you are training people, where you're teaching people. One of the major factors of challenge that we faced was making in such a way that the narrative stays good for technical folks, so that they don't feel that the time is wasted, versus the non-technical folks, so that even they don't feel the time to be wasted. Bridging that gap was a bit of a challenge, and
Yeah.
especially at the scale, creating something like this, having the narrative perfectly put in with all those visuals and stuff, that was a good cookie to be, working along with.
I like that, Shrey. And with that, I will jump over to Kelly. Kelly, one of the things that I got feedback on was, as folks were, you were in the first module, but then you got to observe the other ones as well. A lot of folks kept telling me that because we started going into the technical depths, OT and IT, of the transit system, some of the non technical folks felt a little bit confused, a little bit left out. Did you feel that way as well? I mean, you understand both the technical and the non technical as well. Kelly, did you get that impression that it was a little too technical?
That's a great question. I don't think that I felt it was too technical. I did think that we could have uh, made more distinction in our conversations about when we are talking about business impact versus technical analysis of the problem. And uh, the thing I would take away from that, though, is this happens in real life too, where
Yep.
under pressure, the conversations get mixed and people are talking, sometimes talking on top of each other, sometimes talking in parallel languages. Like, what's the impact? A technical person is going to go directly to analyzing the technical impact and the potential fix. A business leader, especially of the operations, is going to go directly to what's the impact to our financials and to our customers. So I think that it mirrors real life. So that's the good part of it. What we can learn from it in real life and in simulation is when we are identifying a question around the problem and the fix of the problem versus the business impact and the communications of that impact with our customers.
I want to work with that a bit because I think, Shrey, obviously you running a lot of the simulations we saw on the screen, Kelly playing different roles, being not just on stage, but also in the audience. Rob, you weren't there, but of course you've done so many of these, you understand the feel. I'll tell you something that was a consistent source of tension. The tension that we were running into was, and everybody will get to see all of the episodes, they'll be loaded up in sequence over the next week, and I think into the holidays. So Rob, the tension we were facing was the trains could still run, the buses could still run. The problem was the announcement system, the PA, the scheduling system was all wonky. And there was this tension where the technical folks are saying, look, I think we need to shut down, give us the space and the time to bring this all down. Let's pause, let's analyze, let's go deep into our detection analysis and containment. But then the comms and the business folks are going, we have people stuck on buses that need to get home. We have crowds. We can manage the crowds, but we need to get them on the transit. How do you manage that tension as a speaker?
I wasn't in Toronto, but I was in Calgary, and we had a similar tension develop in Calgary. And I did watch the Toronto exercise from home. I got to be a remote viewer for Toronto. And what I would say is every major incident has that tension. And you're in a really rough spot if you're resolving that tension in the middle of an incident. As we found out in Calgary, as I watched in Toronto. By the way easier to watch it with popcorn at home than being in it, I must say. And I think the trick is well before an incident, have we agreed upon our tactical priorities? So is it continued operation? Is it containment? What are our business priorities, and then do we have a incident command system that allows us to run the incident according to those priorities and tweak them if necessary? Is the decision making clear? Who's got that call? What inputs do they need to make that? All of that stuff can get figured out well in advance of an incident. You're going to figure it out one way or the other. Maybe during an incident isn't the best time, but that's where the tension comes. It's absolutely avoidable to a certain degree if with some pre-planning and a good incident command system.
One of the lessons that I took, thank you for that, Rob, is that you can pause a plan, but you can't pause time. And the situation that we found ourselves in, and I could sense the tension. I mean, I'm moderating the whole thing. You could sense the tension that the folks that were in charge of the technicalities, how the network set up, how your IT, OT, etc. is set up, they want that safe space. They want that time. But at the same time, while we had a very dedicated war room, the outside influence was very, very strong. Now, Kelly, you've seen public sector quite a bit. We saw the mayor issue a statement, which was like, okay. We then saw the CEO go rogue and issue a statement, as we ended up learning later, maybe under pressure from a particular councillor. Word is that CEO also had hopes for municipal government sometime in their own career. The outside voices, especially the public sector mayoral councillor voices, some people asked online, how real is it for them to have that much level of influence on how we're responding to an incident? Kelly?
Well, you know what? It's an excellent question, and I would say it's very real. It's very realistic that influences. I won't even say just public sector, and it could be politicians, it could be the public, it could be your customers. But I would say even in corporate businesses, it could be your CEO, it could be your board of directors, it could be your boss who knows that their job could potentially be on the line literally the next day, or they may have in the technical team and in the business operations team, they could have given updates previous to this day that they were rock solid in their cyber protections. They could have asked for money and got money and put some protections in place and given, a false sense of proof that they could not be attacked as a company. So you never know what pressures the person is under who is telling you to move quickly, to make a decision, to tell someone that you have it under control, to tell someone that make a public statement that things have been handled. You never know where that stress is coming from externally. And so one of the things in a good war room is to separate those decision makers from the people who are doing an analysis on the problems, on the communications required, on the legalities that need to be followed, the regulations, like the people that need to sit and think. In a good war room, you will carve them off and give them space.
Yeah.
And give them time, while decision makers may be moving more quickly on some of the things that have to be done, regardless of the fact that we don't have all of the information that we require.
I can work with that. And Shrey, then this comes to you, is that thinking, right? Now, obviously, I know that we've orchestrated this whole thing, and a lot of it is unscripted, but from the technical standpoint, you have a sense of where this is going. The reality is that even in a real incident, when you're investigating and you're doing the quote unquote thinking, you have a hunch of what might be happening, but you never actually say it. There are a lot of clues roaming out in your head, but you don't actually say it. One side is there's the pressure where, oh my God, this counselor and these people are really pushing for things. And if I say more, it can really create more havoc. But sure, how do you hold yourself back from providing a hunch feeling that, oh, I think this might be an insider, oh, I think this might be the third-party vendor? You don't actually end up saying anything like that. How do you hold yourself from revealing what you think might be the root cause?
Well, over long years of practice, we develop these couple couple of interesting things where we realize after going through many of these exercises in real life and in simulations that incident response at the end of the day is not about having the right answer immediately. It is more or less about having a process to navigate through the ambiguity, stabilization of what's happening right now, pure clear communications. These are just basic fundamentals which we have to follow and must follow. Now, on top of it, when we come to following the hunch, as a technical person, as an engineer, I always have small little of these that, hey, this might be breaking, that might be breaking. But that is always coming from an involvement in a day to day operations that I know these systems have been deployed, these systems have been authorized for patchworks, etc., which gives me a good idea right at the start. But after that, we follow the trail of breadcrumbs, which does exist in real life, which helps us
Yeah.
investigate this further in depth. Trail of breadcrumbs are, comes in many forms and shapes and variations of it, but depends upon how technical you are,
Yeah.
how easily you are able to break down these complex builds and systems, these huge distributed infrastructures. Then eventually you get a grip on things that, hey, if the PA systems are not working, is it the microservice for it? Is it the controllers for them? Is it the message bus who is communicating with the PA systems and stuff? That way, over a long period of going through these exercises in a repeated fashion, you develop these hunches. But yes, at the same time, ironically, you also learn to keep these hunches with you because you don't have the data to back that hunch. You can start investigating in that direction, but you definitely need that data to follow through and get answers so that your management, executives, the boards, they will at least have a proper information or data to decide an action plan or perform executions or make decisions on top of which. That would be a very general, sensical idea which I follow as a rule of thumb when it comes to these situations.
I agree. If chaos is the scene, structure keeps it clean. And I think you followed a very good structure and you held back. But I want to interrogate that just a little bit. And as this is the debrief, I'm picking on, 5 or 6 questions that I saw online. Rob, I want to come to you with this one. So, and we have about 16 minutes to go. Rob, while Shrey started to show some of the diagrams and started to show us that, oh, this could be because of an API key that wasn't rotated or something to that effect, we did see folks online say something to the effect of, well, that seems like a noob mistake. Now, the reason that we've done this is we also cannot make it so in depth technical that the audience is completely lost. At the same time, we have to pick things that are a little bit easier to explain. New mistakes, they shouldn't happen, but they do happen. In your experience, why do they happen?
They happen all the time, and they happen for a variety of reasons. Sometimes it's as simple as work pressure. So if you think about it, you're maybe sometime prior to the incident, you're getting yelled at by the business because ABC isn't working. And you're like, oh, it's not getting through the firewall. Oh, I've got 30 seconds before some massive problem it happens. So you throw in the any rule so that this thing works with the full intent of coming back, quote unquote, later and fixing it and finding the problem. But then the reality is the next dumpster fire lands on your desk, and the next one, and the next one. And the beauty about saying you'll come back and do things later is you're never late, right? Later's always in the future.
Yeah.
And so you just never get to that thing. And then there's another thing where you do an expedient fix just to get something working. Or maybe it's a POC environment that was never intended to be production and all of a sudden rolls into production. There's because you don't have the time to destroy it and build a new prod environment. There's all kinds of reasons for all kinds of pressures that we do things that you might look back and go, oh, that's a noob thing or a dumb thing, or what kind of an idiot would do that. But the reality is that's the nature of the pressures in any complex environment. If you show me an environment with none of that, you're probably looking at an environment with 4 computers and nothing, and a printer and nothing else, right? Everything beyond that, you're forced to make those trade-offs in real life, and unfortunately, at incident time, all of those come back to bite you.
Absolutely.
The necromancer comes out and brings all the skeletons back up.
100%. And I think, the way you mentioned about we'll do it later means you're never late. I was saying this even on stage, that if you lose time, you lose the one thing that you cannot replace. And then once you lose it, you lose track completely. So absolutely, workflows and process is a very critical piece to all of this. That was something that started to come out even in the chat. But Kelly, I'll bring something else that came up in the chat. And there was this moment when it's inevitable, people, and I think Vivian put it best, is that you're never strictly in detection mode or strictly in containment mode. It goes together. There a few things happen at the same time, but the incident commander tries to keep the focus to get us moving along. This question kept coming up. Okay, so all right, the PA systems, sure, this mimics something that we saw happen in Windsor, Victoria, and Kelowna airports. The screens are taken over, that time with political messaging, this time with messaging saying something's going to happen. Eventually, we start to see that they're publishing false schedules, they're pushing out the wrong alert. So, okay, but everything is still running. And everyone's asking, so why are they doing this? And almost everybody's mind is tuned into thinking they're doing this because they want money. And eventually, things start to open up, Kelly, and we start to show some social media feeds where someone's going, hey, now's a good time to go and maybe break into the Best Buy at Eden Center or break into these stores because nobody's going to be watching. And immediately we had, and rightfully so, 3 folks online go, that there's no relation between that and this. Eventually, I think we felt that there was a relation between them. How important is it to do those kind of scans and to do those correlations of motivations of an attacker? Kelly, your thoughts?
Well, I would say that there's a time and place for everything. And during containment, you may want some people to be assigned to investigate, think about, reach out, externally and talk about motivation in order to understand where the attack is coming from and why it's happening and where it could be going. That's the reason why you want to understand the intent. The team who's doing the containment, the analysis, and hopefully the restoration, again, I would say the best thing to do is separate them and say, keep your head down. Like if you're doing the analysis of what the problem is and you're going to do the restoration of that, it is sort of irrelevant to you in that moment,
Right.
what the intent was, who's doing it, why they're doing it. Because if you let your head go there, you may actually freeze and not be able to do the work that you're doing. If you go to a dark place and you think, oh, this is an attacker of this type and they're trying to cause chaos and they're trying to get the police involved and they're trying to have mayhem in the city, like you may freeze yourself from any analysis skills. So I've always been under the sort of assumption that we should take the experts who know how to contain and analyze and fix and get them away from everybody else, have a go-between, someone who's talking to them. The decision makers in the room are always going to say, I want to talk to the expert. So if they know the expert is Shrey or they know the expert is Rob, they're going to say, I want Rob in here right now. I need to talk to him. I need to understand what he knows. And I have always been of the mindset, no, you do not need to talk to Rob. You do not need to talk to Shrey. I need to talk to them. You need to stay focused on your job. That is one of the hardest parts of the incident manager or the CISO or the CIO, is to say, no, you don't need access to all these people who are doing this analysis right now. But to understand the intent of where the threat is coming from, where that comes in is you may be fixing something while they're doing a second attack. And so to understand what that intent is and what they want to get out of your company from this attack is extremely important, but not to the person who's looking at code.
Absolutely. And Shrey, this is a great bridge to bring you back into this. Shrey, one of the challenges that you face is you're showing, what the problems could have been. You show where some anomalies are, and you start to build a story as to what potentially could have happened over here. This time around, you tried, and I saw this happen quite a bit, was you started reaching out to like the Trend Micros, the Dark Traces, the Immersive Labs, and started asking them for their perspective on, well, what should you do next, or what ideas do they have? Was that necessarily helpful? Was it helpful in the sense that this is they're telling you things from experience, or was it, yeah, maybe that product would have helped me? How was that engagement like for you? Because you were tuning out every time that I kept saying, well, the attackers have now posted this, or there's this Reddit feed that's going. You started bringing it back to those industry experts. Why were you doing that?
Right. That's a fantastic question, actually, because it pulls in multiple areas of inputs. One of the key takeaways, organizational level, I had from the past YYZ ODTN was these cyber incidents in general are rarely speaking single point of failures in a way, single system failures and stuff. They generally expose how dependent we are on reliable data flows, multiple systems in a particular way, and cross team coordination. That also means that you will require multiple people who are expert in different domains. I mean, if you remember the architecture that we have discussing about, that big drawing board, it's pretty rare that a single person knows every single thing in and out of the entire thing. um, it's good if they do, but it's pretty rare. And bringing these industry experts who have been through these rodeos, who understand their products in depth properly and know that their product will provide certain level of observability, some decision making information, some data flow information, some insights towards what's happening, what went wrong, and when, that definitely helps. And if you have more heads in this spot in particular, sometimes it does not spoil the broth. Sometimes it provides you much information about where you can take a look at, because the way these products are built, they go through hundreds and thousands of these use cases, case studies at the end of the day, and they are coming with that sort of experience and background that, hey, this product was built with a thought process of this case study in their mind. And maybe that you want to cross your fingers and hope with it that this is one of those case studies that they went through, and they could potentially give you direction about where this could lead towards, where this exercise could lead towards, and at least get you a good insights upon the technical response for this incident. That is one of the major reasons where we were calling in Trend Micro and others as well at the same time, so that we can know from their experience about how do you fix things. I know how to bring up a microservice back. I know how to bring up a message bus back. I don't know where the attackers could have attacked on that particular message bus. What are the parameters I need to take a look into? What cleansing or sanitization metrics which I need to follow? What would be the KPIs over there? During those discussions and areas, I think it would be fantastic to bring the industry experts who can guide the exercise or navigate through this chaos. That's one
Fair
of the
enough.
major reasons.
So then, Rob, this is a question for you as we've got about 6 minutes to go. And I know everybody's taken time out, someone on the road. So I want to keep it to this because I have two more questions which I'll circulate amongst all of you. So, really, Rob, when you're in an incident, you have your trusted circle. In your experience, do you reach out to the vendor community at random like that to get feedback or to get some advice?
At random, no, it's intentional.
Okay.
It's not. I'm not doing a survey of the community. Like, I'm not asking Reddit for opinions, right?
Right.
It really comes down to who's the person that can help me with the problem I have if I don't have that expertise. More likely than a vendor, though, because you all should be a part of your industry ISAC, is I would reach out there to my peers in my industry, because they will have not only experienced it, but they also have the business context of the industry that I'm in, which, random friend from Trend might not have, right? And so I'm actually more likely to reach out there initially than a whole pile of vendors, or it'll be the vendors I've got retainers with who have invested in learning my environment, invested in learning my business. The challenge when you bring in too many randos into the conversation is you spend their first 6 hours there explaining the business, explaining the context, explaining all of that versus getting working. So I'm much more likely to pre-stage that knowledge and work with partners who have it. So my peers in my ISAC, vendors I have retainers with that have invested in that. I'm much more likely to do that than
I like that.
than
I like that a lot. It's a very useful tip, and it bleeds into a conversation, a question with which I want to bring us to a summation on this. And Kelly, I'll start with you, and then I'll reword that question for both Shrey and Rob. So, Kelly, one of the challenges that we get, and Operation Defend the North, which resumes again, I believe, March 26th in Ottawa, will take a very, not a very, but a slightly different approach with a different set of engagements through the vendor community. Kelly, this approach by, we had Trend, we had RSM, we had Darktrace, we had Immersive, we had one or two others, I think Splunk and a couple of others. This approach that they've now taken to sit at the table while you're going through an incident, I think it's quite fresh. I think it's quite healthy. Do you have any other suggestions of how vendors can? I really see them as partners, as part of our community. Any suggestions on how vendors can further engage at Operation Defend the North to showcase not just the quality of their product, but the breadth of their experience? Any thoughts, anything radical that comes to mind?
I would say where, and I've used many trusted vendors. I agree with a lot of what Rob said. Like I would typically have vendors on retainer, and sometimes they would tell me I'm being attacked before I would tell them. So that's the best kind of partnership, where
Yeah.
they have insights and they have information that's helpful. um, and I agree with your comments. I just want to make sure I put this in about reaching out to your trusted peer group. I have two CISOs that I have called. I've been under attack at different companies 3 times. Lived this in real life instead of just simulation. And every time have reached out to someone I knew and trusted and said, here's what we're thinking and here's where we're going. Is this logical? Like, you're not involved, so
Right.
no emotion. Are we going the right way? And in all cases, they have validated a lot of what we were doing and gave me an idea that I had not thought of. So, that uh, having your network solid and people you trust is extremely important. Some of those people can be vendors. And I would say in the simulation, where vendors can step up more than talking about their products and their services and what they do as a company, would be to say, in a situation like this, don't forget ABC. And maybe those things are, don't forget you need to get a press release ready. Don't forget that you should only disclose information that is validated, not information that we're sharing here as we're going through analysis. Like, what I think they can give some cautionary advice from situations that they have experienced in the past, almost like a playbook. Like, we would suggest that you do these 5 things or these 8 things, and you guys are on top of 4 of them, but you thought of these other 4? They have experience with other companies, can bring sort of a calming voice with suggestions that go beyond their products and services.
Absolutely. And I think that those case studies, yes, but having those little suggestions that they can provide you, those little playbooks or those tip sheets, I think are extremely, extremely important. But this is one of the reasons that I truly, truly admire an unsung hero in the and I say this with all sincerity, unsung heroes within the cyber community, and that is the folks that craft really good, engaging, thought-provoking marketing campaigns, who create not just white papers, which fine, people like me might read and go through, just because, again, academically bent, I will read those things. But then there are folks that they get engaged in different ways, and those folks who are able to create those campaigns which get those conversations starting. I think that's a huge value to our cyber community, and I have deep respect for those who are able to put together some of those campaigns which initiate those conversations. Two very quick follow-up questions. I'll go with Shrey and then give the last word to Rob. Shrey, this is not necessarily a question that was asked online, but it's something that I have for you, as you're sort of, along with Alex, sort of the brains behind how the technical scenario is presented, and I push it along. Any plans to integrate some of the vendor products into your Christmas tree and all of those other things that you bring up on the screen?
Absolutely, Ali, absolutely. We love to innovate. We love to create new systems, new visuals, new builds, and everything.
Yeah.
From the first iteration of the ODTN towards the last one, I think we, ramped it up quite a bit. And going into the
Absolutely.
year 2026, the plan is, keep following the tradition. We want to ramp it up more. We want to integrate more sponsored products. We want to talk about more, not just Christmas tree of lights, but more like, any festivals like Hanukkah, Diwali, and you can add every single one of them and make a pretty big platform which provides a good sustenance towards the audience. We want to focus upon an immersive experiences as well. I don't want to say more, maybe, and everyone will kill me if I release it right now. So I'm just going to
Fair
keep
enough.
things, a little bit on secret. But
Yeah.
yeah, rest assured, we are planning big things. We want to absolutely keep the audience engaged and share new stuff with them. This way, they get bigger, better learning experiences, and we love talking to the community in that way. That's one of the biggest feedback that we have, that these exercises
Absolutely.
are more visuals, interactive, where people are able to see things on what's happening. And
Yeah.
that's a good positive feedback, because that makes us feel that yes, audience is engaged, audience wants more, and we want to give more. So on that note, the answer is yes, but I can't reveal it.
Thank you very much, Ray. And I want to say, you've been a new addition to the advisory board in your role at CyberX, in your teaching gigs and everything else that you do. I think I can speak. I'm not sure how much Rob has interacted with you before, but he is getting to now. I know Kelly has interacted quite a bit with you. I can say this with a lot of humility and pride that it is truly phenomenal to see how far you've come over the last 3 to 4 years to own the stage like you did alongside Alex. Alex is not an easy act to follow. There's 25, 30 years of experience there. But the way you've built that camaraderie so organically, I think is a testament to who you are and also your commitment. So on behalf of all of us, thank you for everything that you do, because you've really brought the technical side alive. And it's not like in words I couldn't do that. It's just as a moderator, there's so much else that I have to manage, that knowing that I have that trusted two, especially led by yourself and Alex, to do that, it really takes off a lot of pressure. So well done to you. And with that, final question to Captain Rob. Rob, you watched online this time. And one of the things that you hear of in online events, you don't get a lot of engagement. But Operation Defend the North, the chat is blowing up. And I'm doing my best to navigate all of it in real time. What was one difference that you, besides the popcorn that you could enjoy, what was one major difference on being on stage versus watching it unfold?
Oh, there's a lot. One's hard. Yeah, the popcorn's better at home. The fuzzy slippers are an improvement over my dress shoes. Um, but beyond that, I think, I brought it up in Vancouver in the first year and last year in Calgary. Cyber incidents are a bit unique in that it's not the kind of troubleshooting we're trying to fix a technical glitch. It's really in a lot of ways, technological combat against an adversary who's, trying to do harm to the organization. And that combined with some of the pressures we talked about early from management and the public and politicians and things, and then also the chat, which in a real incident we call Reddit, right?
Yes.
And the experts of Meal Team 6 who could have done it better. Those pressures on responders are massive. And
Absolutely.
I've experienced it, obviously, in instance. I got to watch it on hand, and it really drove home the importance that somebody in every incident needs to be responsible for the mental health and safety of those responding. Best practices is a trained person to do it, from maybe your EAP provider or performance psychologist. But even just having people on the team trained in psychological first aid that have done that Red Cross or St. John Ambulance course is absolutely critical. And being able to watch from afar versus being in it really drove home sort of that impact, even in a one-day simulation that we all know is fake. And we all know the trains are still running and nothing bad is really happening, let alone what it's like in real life. And so it drove home the importance that we have to really focus on taking care of our people.
Thank you so very much. And I'll add to this is that I think I felt Now, yes, at the back of my head, I know this is all like it's fictitious. There's a little bit of stress as the moderator, as I have to manage, along with the AV team that does a phenomenal job. Okay, screen's coming up, right? I gotta look at this trigger, blah blah blah. But the psychological and the emotional side is so critical, because I remember there was there were two individuals on the chat who were really prolific, Yasin and Moses. And then Moses, when he made that comment, and I know it was well intentioned, he made the comment, "Hey, I don't think these two are related." I took it a little personally for a moment. I was like, "No, I want to answer this," right? And that happens in real time. And although I was very professional about it, but at the back I was like, I'm going to answer this person, right? And then I realized, no, Moses is making a good point. And then I weaved it into the discussion. But that's the reality of it. The emotions do kick in. And I think psychological first aid is such an unheard of statement, and is an axis and a practice that needs to be considered in these extremely challenging situations. With that, I'm about 4 minutes above time, but I want to firstly thank Kelly, Rob, and Shrey for taking the time, for not only joining me today for this quick debrief, but also for all of your support with Operation Defend the North over the last year and a half. This has become something that I don't think I would have ever imagined. I got a random call from Maddie, April 2025, saying, "I got this idea. Show up. Here's a scenario. Run it." And I ran it over 3 days. Didn't even know what this was going to look like, but just played with it. And here we are. And I think none of this would have happened if your support, your buy-in, etc., was not in. The return on investment for all of this is the amount of folks that have now got more awareness, more criticality, and more tools and thoughts to work with in the face of an ever-growing attack landscape. There was one question that was asked to me, and with that, I'll bring us to a close. I think it was Vinay Puri, who was one of our advisors on our region in Toronto, and he said, "Ali, aren't you tired? How are you doing this? Don't you just want to sit and watch?" And yes, it is tiring. It is all of that, but there is a special thrill that comes out of it. I've always believed that a lot of people will chase the crown, but few people will stay behind to build the ground. I like to be in that environment where you build the ground, because that keeps you humble, that keeps you close to where the real action is, and allows you to be alongside your team as they're facing some challenging circumstances. I think that's the true measure of someone who aspires to become a leader. With that, I have some travel coming up, so I may not be here for the next debrief, but I will turn it over to a far more competent and eloquent individual, which is Maddie Raza, who will take you into 2026 and everything that is to come. I wish you all, along with the advisors on the debrief right now, a wonderful, wonderful Thursday evening or Friday morning if you are anywhere else in the world like Shrey. And if I don't get to see you, have a safe and happy holidays. And here's hoping for a peaceful 2026 and beyond. Take care, everybody.